This is Kimberly, and I'm here from Your Ultimate Mind Power. Thank you for tuning in to this video. And today I'm coming to you to have a conversation about self-honesty. We're going to talk about what that means, how to practice it, how it can improve your life, and some things to think about that could be getting in the way. So let's start with what self-honesty is. Self-honesty is a very specific aspect of honesty that is critical on the path to self-awareness. If you've listened to some of my other videos, you've heard me talk about insight and how important insight and self-awareness is to our self-development and growth. And while honesty all around is important, self-honesty is the critical part that we're going to be talking about today. So obviously no one is perfect when it comes to being self-aware and self-honest, but some people are better at it than others. For some, lying to themselves has become so deeply ingrained and such a habit that they've actually become blind to the reality that many others can clearly see. There's an old saying about the word denial that says that denial actually stands for don't even notice I am lying, right? So that's what that is. When we are not honest with ourselves, we're living in denial, and that can hold us back in so many ways. So you might be asking, well, how? What are some of the ways that it can hold me back? Ignorance is bliss, right? No. Ignorance, yes. I mean, when you're not aware, it allows you to avoid certain things, but you're not serving yourself, you're not serving the people around you when you're not being real. So why is self-honesty so important? It can be one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself when you learn to be self-honest. And it is a skill. It is something that can be learned. So even if you have experienced denial in the past, you can learn to change that. And I'm going to show you how in this video. When you lie to yourself to feel better when things get uncomfortable, any relief you may be getting is only temporary. I can guarantee you that reality will surface eventually. For example, perhaps you've been putting on some extra weight. I know a lot of people, myself included, who during COVID-19 and being locked down, not being able to be as active as normal, maybe not having your regular routine, a lot of people put on some weight. So you might have told yourself, oh, I'm fine. You know, it's just I'm going through a difficult time and I'm just going to wear my yoga pants today because I want to be comfortable. And then when it's time to go back to work, your work pants don't fit because you haven't been honest with yourself. Right? And so eventually reality is going to surface and you'll realize that something needs to change so that you don't keep going down a path that may not be healthy for you. Self-honesty is how you get out of the cycle of denial and avoidance. Again, some of you who have listened to my videos before, you know that I have a background as a clinical therapist, and I work with a lot of people who struggle with addiction. And self-honesty can be a real challenge for people who struggle with any addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling or sex, whatever the addiction is. If you remain in denial about the problem that you have, it allows you to keep doing what you're doing, right? Even with the food example, if you're putting on weight, but you're sort of in denial about it and you're not giving any attention to it, or if you've been drinking more than you usually do, and it's become more habitual for you, but you're really not paying attention to it and being mindful of it, if you're staying in denial about it, then that allows you to keep doing it rather than saying, oh, something is not right here. I'm not behaving in the most healthy way that I can. And that self-honesty often leads to some sort of change. So as human beings, sometimes we get very uncomfortable with change. We like things to be the same. We like to do what we want to do. And self-honesty can be hard for that reason, because sometimes when we are honest with ourselves, when we take a good look in the mirror, we may not like everything that we see. But even though it's hard, it is worth it. And I will get to more about that and how it can change your life in the coming bits of this video. So first I want to talk to you about how can we practice self-honesty? Do you just wake up one day and you decide you're going to be self-aware? No, as I said before, it is a skill. It takes time. It takes learning. It takes practice. So I will give you, in this video, I'm going to talk about 6 tips, 6 ways that you can practice self-honesty. Let's look at the first one. So here's a quote that you see at the bottom of your screen there. It's by Karl Popper, and he said, "I may be wrong, and you may be right, and by an effort, we may get nearer to the truth." I like that quote. It really speaks to the first way to practice self-honesty that I want to share, and that is simply this. Consider the possibility that you may be wrong, right? Consider the possibility that you may not know everything. And this is brutal honesty that I'm giving to you today to help you improve yourself and grow as a person. Nobody is right all the time, right? Even sometimes very popular opinion that a large group of people shares can be wrong. If you think about it, there was a time when the prevailing view was that the world was flat. And until that belief was challenged and there was evidence given and proof given that was not true, everybody believed it. A large population of the world, right? So one way to practice self-honesty is to consider the possibility that your beliefs may be wrong. Many of them are maybe right, but there may be some that are wrong. People who insist that they are always right are limiting their potential to adapt, learn, and grow. And I'll say that again. By insisting that you are always right, you are limiting yourself. You're closing the door to new knowledge, new awareness, new information. And that can be damaging to yourself. So when you're practicing this tip to improve your self-honesty of considering that you may be wrong about some things, this is what I want you to ask yourself. Can you think of an example in your own life when you once swore you were right about something, but later learned that you needed to change your viewpoint? That's what I want you to do to practice this. So you can write these questions down, and you can practice them in your own meditative time or in your own self-work time. And you can even think about it as we go along. Have you ever once sworn you were right and then later found out you were wrong and you had to change your viewpoint? Think about that. That's one easy way to practice self-honesty. Most of us can look back and think of a time when we had to eat a bit of humble pie in that area. All right, so let's go to the next one. The second way to practice self-honesty is to open your mind. Do not automatically close yourself off to viewpoints just because you initially feel that you disagree with them, right? So most of us can look back who are past our teenage years and remember maybe telling our parents or other grown-ups in your life, oh, I'm just having a little fun. I've got everything under control. And then later find out that maybe you should have listened to them. Maybe they actually knew what they were talking about when they gave you some words of caution. The saying, if I only knew now, or if I only knew then what I know now, that's what this is referring to. Or also the saying, hindsight is 20/20, right? So just because our initial reaction to a viewpoint might be, no, there's no way that can be true. I'm going to ask you to practice keeping your mind open, right? If someone tells you something, even if your first instinct is, man, that is really outlandish, that's out there, I can't subscribe to that. Just think about it, right? Even if you initially feel you disagree, just think about it. So ask yourself, what is a viewpoint that you currently disagree with that perhaps you could be more open-minded about if you took a little bit of time to try to learn more about it? So I'll give you an example for myself. And this was something external. This wasn't within myself, but it could still be an example of how to do this. So when the COVID vaccination first became available in my area, my immediate reaction was, no way, I'm not getting it. I don't like vaccines. I don't believe in them. I don't think they work. I'm not doing it. And I really had to open my mind and learn about it for myself, not just listen to what was being told to me by the people around me, but actually do the research and look into it myself and, allow myself to take another look at it. And I eventually ended up getting it. So I'm not like telling you what to do one way or the other as far as being vaccinated for COVID, but I'm just giving you an example of how I felt really strongly against it at first, until I opened my mind up a little bit and allowed myself to learn a little bit more and be educated about that particular viewpoint. So I'm going to ask you to do that yourself. Think about viewpoints that you currently disagree with and whether you might be a bit more open-minded about them. The third way to practice self-honesty is to do the math. Does what you say is true really add up? So are you saying what you're saying is true, or do you just want it to be true, right? Are you swearing up and down that the sky is green because you just want it to be true, or is it really true? So for example, consider a man who says, oh, I can eat whatever I want. I can eat French fries and cake and pizza and ice cream, and I can still stay slim. And maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't ever gain weight, and maybe you're jealous of him because his metabolism is so great and he seems slim even though he eats an unhealthy diet. And then maybe he goes to his doctor for his annual physical, gets some blood work done, and finds out that his cholesterol is off the charts. And as a result, then his heart may be in trouble. Or maybe he finds out that he's pre-diabetic because of the diet he's been eating. So he may appear slim on the outside, but the truth is, on the inside, his body is not really healthy, right? So do the math. Are you saying something because you just want it to be true, or is it really true? Ask yourself, what is an area of your life that it might be a good idea to really sit down and honestly evaluate your current progress? Whether that's with your physical health, your mental health, perhaps your career, your finances, right? That's a tough one right there, that last one, the finances, right? Can you sit down and honestly evaluate your progress and take a good, true look at what is going on and what maybe you just might have wanted to be true? That's number 3. And moving on to number 4, look for evidence, right? So once you've done the math, once you've taken a good, honest look at your situation, then look for evidence. If something is true, there should be some proof, right? More than just a feeling. Not like, oh, everything's fine, I feel good. Or, you know what, I'm sure I'm gonna get that promotion, right? I feel it, I just feel it in my gut. Look for evidence, right? Have you gotten positive performance evaluations at work? Has your boss talked to you about getting promoted, right? Are there other qualified applicants, right? Look for evidence to manage your expectations and be honest with yourself. So consider an athlete, say there's someone who runs, right? Say you know someone who likes to run, and she's always bragging that she just knows she's the best. But the truth is she's been running in a lot of races and hasn't won a race in years. Maybe she won a race in high school 15 years ago or 20 years ago. So how does she know she's the best now? What evidence is there? Ask yourself, how do you really know that you are making progress? What evidence do you use to honestly measure it? Right? So once you take that honest look at yourself, then look for something measurable. How do you know? How do you know? What are you looking at in the bottom line of your bank account? Does that show that you're making progress financially? Are you saving up for a house? And, maybe your goal is to buy a house next year. Are you going in the right path to save up the money that you need to make that down payment? Right? Look for evidence. Right? If you're trying to lose weight, are you going and using the measuring tape once a month to see if you're losing inches? Are you making progress? Right? Are you trying to get stronger physically? So when you go and lift weights, is the number of reps you're doing increasing, or is the amount of weight you're lifting increasing? How do you know you're making progress? Right? This is very important in your self-honesty practice, to have some evidence. On to number 5. This one's important. It can be very helpful if you're open to it. Listen to the people who know you, who love you, and whom you can trust. Right? Sometimes other people can be wrong. I'm not saying they're always right about us. However, quite often those people, and I'm talking about people close to you, people who you really trust, quite often they can see things in you that you may not be seeing. So it's worth a listen, even if it hurts sometimes. Now, you don't want to just go asking any Joe Schmo about this. You want to be asking someone who you feel comfortable with and who you know really does love you and trusts you. And ask them specific questions, right? About what it is that you're looking at in your self-honesty. If you're looking for some change in your life and you want to know how you're doing, ask those people, right? It's worth a listen. Even if you don't like what they say, it's still information that's important and will help you to say, okay, maybe I'm not where I want to be, so I know what I need to do now to improve myself further, right? It can be information to motivate you and keep you going. So ask yourself, who can you go to? Who do you have in your life to get a truthful and honest assessment about how you're really doing? Maybe a spouse, maybe a good friend, maybe a mentor, whoever you think. Just ask yourself who that person is so that you can plan to go to them at some point in your self-honesty practice. And then the last one, this is the 6th way to practice self-honesty. We've all heard the phrase before, the truth hurts. And there is truth to that, right? The truth can hurt sometimes. So you see the quote here on your screen. It says, "Better to get hurt by the truth than comforted with a lie." And that comes back to what I was saying earlier in the video, that ignorance is not bliss, right? It may give us some temporary comfort and some temporary relief from the pain of the truth that we sometimes experience, but it's not helping us change or grow. It's keeping us stuck in a reality that is not allowing us to reach our top potential and be the best version of ourselves. Right? And in the end, that's why self-honesty is so important, because the more real and honest we are with ourselves, the better chance we have of reaching a higher potential, right? Being the best version of ourselves, continuing to grow and change for the better. So when you're practicing this tip, the truth hurts tip, just take notice of that, of if you are sensitive to certain criticism. Take notice of that and be mindful that maybe there's some element of truth to it that you need to work on. So if someone gives you specific feedback, right, and you kind of bristle at it, right, you feel angry or you feel upset that they said that to you, just think about whether there's some truth to it. So for example, I worked with someone who had a terrible habit of interrupting people. He did it all the time. He would just talk over people, and it was clear he wasn't really listening to you because he would just kind of jump in and talk over you. And he actually, if anyone ever interrupted him when he was speaking, he got so angry. He would become so angry and just lash out. He really didn't like it. And in the context of this self-honesty, I believe that's because, that's was a flaw that he had within himself that maybe he didn't want to address or didn't like being told about. So he would lash out at other people who did that, rather than taking an honest look at himself and say, you know what, I have a bad habit of interrupting people and I need to change that and be a better listener, right? So if there are certain criticisms or certain things that really bug you, either that other people tell you or that you notice in other people, just be mindful that there might be an element of truth to that you need to work on yourself, right? And otherwise, if it doesn't apply, let it fly, right? You can take in constructive feedback from people you love and trust. You can be mindful of when that criticism stings, for sure. You can use it to help you grow. But also, in your quest to be real with yourself, be honest with yourself, you may need to choose what to let go of and what to hold on to. So it's important to remember that too. And so you're going to ask yourself, what are the topics that might come up in your life that can sometimes make you feel a little bit sensitive, a little guarded or defensive, right? So what kind of feedback do you get from people that really gets your hackles up, that causes you to be a bit defensive? And then just take notice if there's any truth to that, or anything in you that you might want to look at changing or working on. It's very helpful advice. Now, so I've given you a lot of content there and those ways to practice self-honesty. And I also want to talk to you about some of the pitfalls, some of the common thoughts that we may have that actually can get in the way of being honest with yourself and can actually lead to self-destruction in that area. So some of the common thoughts, there are so many, but I'm only going to go through 10 today. And this is more advanced. So when you've gone through these 6 tips to practice self-honesty and you want to go even deeper, you can take a look at these thoughts. So let's look at 10 thoughts that can lead to self-deception. So these are kind of red flag thoughts that if you catch yourself having them, just check yourself and say, oh no, am I lying to myself here? How do I go back to practicing self-honesty? So the first one is, I want, therefore I must have. Or it might even be, I like, therefore I must have. And just because we may want something doesn't mean it's good for us. So think of an example of, say you are really attracted to your friend's boyfriend, right? Just because you want him doesn't mean you should have him, right? He's your friend's boyfriend or husband or whatever. So just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you or it's right for you. Just because I like ice cream doesn't mean I should eat it every day, because that wouldn't be good for me. So that thought can lead to self-deception. Check yourself if you're having that thought, I want, therefore I must have. Another thought that leads to self-deception, that's just not who I am. That's just not me. Have you ever said that? Think about if you've ever said that or even thought it. Some people will make that statement and it's not even true. It's just an excuse to not change what they really need to do, right? If someone gives you feedback and, if that's your response, well, that's just not who I am. Be mindful of that, right? Because there might be some truth to that. And there might be something that needs to change there. The next one, there's nothing I can do about it. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe there is nothing you can do. Maybe there's nothing you can change in that situation. But can you change your attitude about it? Yes. That is the only thing that is within your control. There is a lot that happens in our lives that's completely out of our control. And there's nothing we can do about. But we can always control our attitude and change our attitude if we need to, right? So that is a thought that can lead to self-deception, right? There's nothing I can do about it. That leads to us feeling helpless, hopeless, victimized, right? And that's all a lie. Those are lies. You can always change your attitude and how you handle a situation. Next one, if I ignore it, it will go away by itself. If only that were true. Oh my goodness, if only that were true. Sometimes people think burying their head in the sand will make a problem go away. And you can't always count on that, right? Some problems you need to face. Maybe you're having financial problems. Maybe you've got letters coming in from collectors and you're just thinking, well, I'm just not going to open that. If I ignore that problem, it'll go away. Let me tell you, that won't work. The problem is still there. You ignoring it does not make it go away, and in some cases, it actually makes it worse. All right, next one. Everyone has to like and approve of me. So sometimes we may not think this thought so clearly, but there are those of us who really seek a lot of approval and validation from other people, right? And we feel like if we don't get that validation, if people don't like us, then that means we're no good, right? It is nice to be liked. I'm not denying that. It is nice to be liked and validated. But sometimes we have to make choices about doing the right thing, even if people do not like it, right? And not everyone is always going to like you, right? Some people might disagree with you. Some people may not vibe with you. They may not like your personality. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're unlikable, right? It means that that person is not part of your tribe. That's all. That's all. So you let it fly. All right. The next one. I must be the way my family and child life shaped me out to be. That is not true, right? We are all somewhat molded by our past and our upbringing, what happened in our family, for good or for bad, right? However, you're not destined to follow the path that you feel might have been laid out as a youth, right? You can change your path by making different choices, by changing your attitude, changing your environment. Even if you can't change your environment, if you're in the same environment, you can still change your attitude, change your thinking, and be honest with yourself. And next, my fears are all legitimate, and I must listen to them, right? That is something that we call emotional reasoning. If I feel it, it must be true. And that's not true, right? That is a lie. That's self-deception. Fear can be very helpful. It can actually be healthy, right? In some cases, it can serve as protection, right? If we feel fear, then we take measures to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. So it can be good in that respect. However, not all fears are rational excuses for our behavior, right? That is a self-deception that runs the risk of limiting you from reaching your full potential. And next, I am not influenced by others whom I surround myself with. The truth is, no one is safe from the power of association. No one, right? Positive people will have a positive influence, and negative people a negative one. This is human nature. Surround yourself with people who will lift you up and who you can lift up. Surround yourself with people who you can offer value to and who offer value to you. If you surround yourself with people who are holding you back and bringing you down all the time, you will self-destruct. That is the truth. Next. We're almost there. Thank you for sticking with me through all this. I know a lot of this is very deep and profound, and this is really a lot of self-work that you can be doing when you examine these thoughts. If I let go of my anger toward others who wronged me, then they win. Okay? That's not true. That is a thought that is a self-destructive thought. Right? Not every score must be settled. Not every wrong needs to be righted. Most often, the best course, whenever possible, is to forgive, forget, and move forward. Or even if you can't forgive and forget, you can still move forward in a positive manner. And the last one, I have to always be right to be strong. Right? If I admit I'm wrong, then that's a weakness. I'm weak. That's not true. There is a time to stand up for what you feel is right, But there's also a time for humility, to let others show you the way. And that's okay sometimes to say, you know what, I was wrong about that. Thank you for letting me know. And I'm going to try to correct it. That's okay. That shows strength of character. When you can humble yourself to admit your wrongs and admit that there might be something you need to change or work on, that does show strength of character. So think for yourself, which of any of those thoughts do you have to watch out for in your own experience? They might not all apply to you, but I bet one or two of them might, or maybe more. So which of those might you have to watch out for? And how can you adjust and adapt in order to improve? I encourage you to give this some thought in your daily practice, in your meditation, and your self-work, and your journaling, or however you do your self-work. Think about that. How can I adapt, right? We're constantly, as human beings, we're constantly changing, and we have that beautiful ability and capacity for adaptation so that we can make the most of our situations. And I would really love to see that for all of you who are watching, that you can grow and change and reach your fullest potential, whatever that might be. So I would encourage you to work on this self-honesty, practice some of the tips that I gave you, of those 6 tips. If you liked this video, I want to thank you for watching all the way to the end and ask you to please go ahead and subscribe so you can get notified when I put out new videos and new content that will help you with your self-growth. And feel free to like this video, make comments, ask questions, and I will do my best to reply. And that is all I have for you for today. So please take a look in the mirror, practice your self-honesty, become a better you, become the real you. And I will see you next time. From yourultimatemindpower.com, this is Kimberly. Thank you and goodbye.